in memory of Stephen Fogg and Ian Bell, whose lives were claimed by the mountain during our stay. August 1st, 2015. I am writing this from my small hotel room in Fort William. Today we were transferred to this place by Jim Maguire of Clark Commercials, a colleague who I also regard as a friend. On our arrival, James and I checked in and were permitted to use the hotel's storeroom as a holding cell for our provisions. Evening dinner was all that could be desired, and afterwards we visited the swimming pool and saunas. James burnt his arse in the sauna, an injury that I hope will not affect our event. At this point I have seldom laughed so much, and the feeling of brotherhood and friendship fills the air delightfully. Outside, Ben Nevis is only partially visible, the rest being hidden behind a menacing, monstrous cloud. I lost my room key this evening, and after a half hour of inquiries and searching, it was located in James's pocket. There's a wedding reception here tonight and everyone looks wonderful. After a few Highland Park malt whiskies, I've retired to my room. I wish I could write more, but it's almost 11 p.m. and we have a busy day tomorrow. Sunday the 2nd of August 2015. The day I thought or hoped would never arrive is here. We breakfasted on all the bacon and eggs we could manage and finalised our gear. The advance party arrives soon. The summit, but under horrific circumstances. Chris Harper, football team manager, had to turn back due to severe exhaustion and sickness. This left 4 of us, Ewan Norrie, myself, James and Shirley Sutherland, to carry an extra full army rucksack. The members of the football team, 12 in number, being too far ahead for us to call for help. Ewan carried the extra bag along with his own, a display of hardihood and resourcefulness. We wouldn't have got by without them. It was another 1.5 hours before we had sufficient phone signal to call ahead for assistance. James and I struggled under the weight of our kit. Poor Daniel English also had to return to the base of the mountain due to his fear of heights, leaving the 4 of us with even more extra bags to carry. A message was finally relayed to the summit where the football team were waiting in freezing conditions, and Tommy Curran and Chris Grant descended almost 2 hours to meet us, collect some materials from us and return to the summit. About 20 minutes later, Kieran Dunn and 2 young football players arrived and helped us up with the rest of our stuff. A massive effort by the lads. My hip, the left one, almost completely gave way. At the summit, the rain, fog and freezing conditions made laying stores of food incredibly difficult, but the footballers put in another great show and even helped hang our banner on the storm shelter cairn. Shirley Sutherland was allowed not to participate. The poor girl was exhausted and beaten from earlier events. What a performance from her though. Ewan Norrie was the star of today's show. At the summit we photographed ourselves and bid the advance party farewell. James and I have eaten hot food now and are busy organising our stuff. Hard work, all of it. The weather is atrocious here, gales, freezing rain and no visibility whatsoever. After the events of today, we can only hope for our luck to change. Monday the 3rd of August 2015. Our first full night was spent in the emergency shelter. We were in our sleeping bags by about 9 o'clock last night. The weather was atrocious with gales of over 60 miles an hour and driving rain. According to James' reports of my snoring, I apparently slept very well, with James sleeping considerably less. We woke at 7:30 in the morning to the same horrible weather, and James ventured outside to pee. He returned soaking wet, and one can only hope it was rainwater that he had soaked himself with. We met our first tourist today at about 9 o'clock in the morning, 2 soaking wet chaps from Kirkintilloch who we invited in out of the weather. They congratulated us on our stunt and offered to take the first 2 bags of rubbish down the mountain with them. After donating money to the Archie Foundation, they bid us farewell. The rest of the morning was spent chatting to the tourists. After lunch we entertained 3 young Brummy chaps who delighted us with their sense of humour. In the afternoon, James set about building a cairn to commemorate our stay here. It's about a quarter finished now, and I was happy to stand and superintend the operation while sipping whisky. At 4 p.m, the cloud that has encased us since our arrival dissipated and revealed the reason why we chose Ben Nevis. Stunning views across the whole of Scotland, bright skies and warm air. This is the happiest we have felt since arriving. It's about 8 o'clock in the evening now, and James is off to investigate some proper pooping quarters for us, for I think I will need it soon. The ration pack he cooked for me this evening was amongst the spiciest food I've ever eaten, much to his amusement. He chuckled and guffawed so much through my meal that he could scarcely enjoy his own. I ventured for a poo earlier today and the whole event was nothing but a disaster, so I hope he finds us a more secure, less windy and less tourist-filled location. The skies are still beautifully clear, but the last of the tourists have now left. We will amuse ourselves somehow and maybe do more photographing, but sleeping bags beckon soon. We hope for visitors tomorrow, family or friends or loved ones, as we very much look forward to seeing familiar faces. We've discussed it much today and I hope we aren't disappointed. Tuesday the 4th of August 2015. Last night in our sleeping bags, hilarity filled the air. Other things filled the air also. After my super spicy vindaloo in a poke dish created by James last night, I suffered from what some might call gut rot. The smell isn't easily described and James protested, but in reality it was his own doing. The wind last night are amongst the largest gales I've ever sat through, and in the morning once again the banner had to be resecured. The earliest visitors were received this morning were all completely soaked to the skin and absolutely miserable. The weather has not changed all day and is forecast to be horrific tomorrow too, Wednesday. There were extremely few tourists today and the ones we did see told us tales of hundreds of people turning back at the halfway waterfall due to the bad weather. The highlight of our day was the arrival of our older brother Stephen, our nephew David and our niece Abby. Wonderful to see their cheerful smiling faces considering what weather they had just battled through to come to us. They gave us gifts of a newspaper and some soggy magazines, Stephen claiming to be Britain's highest paper boy. We got some photos with them and wished them a safe return down the mountain. This lifted our spirits immensely after morale had been starting to falter. I had the most unpleasant toilet experience of my life today, which I won't go to any length to describe, as even writing about it makes me feel sad. I captured a video of James flying his kite this evening, also a gift from Stephen. It took him a good hour to assemble, and without word of a lie lasted about 15 seconds before the strings broke and the body of the kite vanished down the western cliff of the mountain. It's evening now and we're completely storm-bound, scarcely able to venture outside. James is far more cheerier than me about our situation and how time is passing. But then again, I always was a pessimist. We'll unfurl our sleeping bags soon and hope the weather conditions to improve so I can explore the summit further and James can continue construction work on his cairn. Excuse the handwriting, but it's very cold. P.S. We received a message last night to the effect that Graham Galloway of DD8 has taken the decision not to send musicians up on Wednesday. This being due to the horrific weather that's forecast and the event containing all youngsters aged between 16 and 20. This is a decision we fully support and understand. These are no conditions to be playing music in. We know this is a decision that Graham will not have taken lightly, and we thank them immensely for all their support along the way. Wednesday the 5th of August. Sleep never visited me until late last night, with the howling gale, the driving rain, joining forces with James's snoring. I never stood much of a chance. James tells me he doesn't snore much. I can tell you he's rather good at it. Full snores, complete with a whistle at the end. The first tourists arrived about 9:30 this morning, soaking wet. We spent most of the morning exchanging stories with hikers. We were delighted to welcome a couple of 20-something soaking wet cold hikers from Philadelphia who couldn't believe what we were doing for charity. Sarah and Mike were an interesting and amusing pair, and I flatter myself that they liked us also. I offered to photograph them together at the Ordnance Survey trig point, and they promised to post a picture of us online. One Ukrainian fellow was a strange lot. He'd spent 2 days walking and sleeping in forests and refused their offer of food. We asked him if he was camping in Fort William, and he replied simply, "I hate campsites." Fair enough. James's army colleagues visited us today with some gifts, and we got some great photographs with them. Very welcome guests indeed. Tourists in general were few and far between today due to the weather, and for the most part of the evening we've been alone. We sported our waterproofs and played frisbee, one of the 3 frisbees vanishing over the cliff in seconds. We walked to the snow face and had a snowball fight. After our evening meals of beef cassava, me, and paella, James, we discussed how much longer we go before we go home, a subject that features much in our conversations now. A fun stunt, but the weather is slowly getting us down physically and mentally. No more at present. Thursday the 6th of August 2015. I slept late again last night, but slept well when I did. We woke at 7 o'clock in the morning, but with no sign of tourists we went back to sleep. I only know it was 7 o'clock because I switched my phone to briefly check, something we rarely do. We agree that checking the time constantly makes it seem to pass slower. For the most part, our nighttime way of keeping time is as follows. Still dark, not time to get up. Daylight, maybe time to get up. Hear footsteps, definitely time to get up. We were visited today by our friends Lee, Sarah and Kim, who helped replenish our whisky supplies, and they took some photos of us down the mountain with them to forward to Scotland Now and the Daily Record. Our friend Callum Meekin was supposed to be joining them on the summit with us, but Lee tells us he pleaded fatigue half an hour into the walk and returned to the car to sleep. In the afternoon, we were joined by a lovely Singapore lass named Susanna, who offered us food and extra warm clothes. She even offered to take a bag of litter down the mountain with her. When she left, she forgot the bag of litter, and this never really bothered us. Imagine her amazement when she returned to the summit 20 minutes later, soaking wet and freezing, and shouted, "Alex, I'm sorry I forgot your trash. I'm here to take it now." The world needs more Susannas. Fucking loads more. Weather today has been atrocious again. One tourist from Newcastle entered our hut, farted loudly, said pardon me, allowed his greyhound to lick my face, and then left, clearly delighted with himself. Beef goulash for tea tonight and rancid pineapple chunks. Last tourist seen about 8 p.m. at the trig point. More photography and laughter. We have a bottle of cider and half a Malteser cake to share this evening, donated by a lovely Irish gentleman. My fingers are numb now. Susanna left us a small wooden thermometer which says 1 degree. I'm not going to conceal the truth, I would very much like to go home now. Texts from Carrie, Louise, Esther, Fiona and Chris today made me smile. No more for now. Friday the 7th of August 2015. It wasn't as cold in our sleeping bags last night, temperature about 1 degree Celsius above freezing. Both of us slept well. Horrendous freezing gales and rain this morning, but by 11 o'clock the weather calmed and it became very pleasant. Among the first visitors we had today on the summit was a nice chap from Fort William, accompanied by his son, who had considerably less to say than his father. It was the guy's 40th birthday and he shared his Nevis Dew whisky with us, by way of a celebration. He was a complete fountain of knowledge on all aspects of the summit and we learned much from him. He has climbed Ben Nevis over 70 times now. He described to us in detail where the hotel was and how the observatory was shaped, and we even found out that our storm shelter was made in the Fort William paper mill. The most amazing thing of all was when he asked us to accompany him to our shelter. At the very base of the hut was a perfectly flat stone, which I've stood on, sat on, tripped over innumerable times now. He waited until few tourists were watching and turned the stone over, not without some difficulty I may add, due to the great weight, and to our amazement it was a gravestone. On it were the words Wilson, 1810, Eastern Rhone Canal, and underneath the stone some rotting woods or boards. What was under the boards I'm happy to leave to the imagination. Highlight of the day for me was seeing a familiar face emerge from the crowd of tourists. After a few double takes, it turned out to be my great Welsh friend Kyron Challenger and his wife Tarina. They had been planning this visit to the summit for weeks and kept details of it for me as a surprise. They gave us cakes all the way from Wales and some sausage rolls. A very nice surprise indeed. In the afternoon, in the perfectly clear weather, we sat on the cliff top and watched two skilled climbers on the opposite cliff. During Monday's horrifically spicy and stomach-destroying meal of chicken noodle spice, I complained to James the only thing that would be hotter, spicier and more gut-rotting would be Rogan Josh. Tonight, James gave me Rogan Josh for tea, much to his near infinite amusement. We went for a walk after tea to stretch our legs, and for me to get some welcome drafts of fresh air into my spicy food-fucked mouth. At the very far reach of the summit and amongst boulders, James came across a green metal box about the size of the average shoebox. On the side it said geocache, and inside was toys, pens, trinkets, waterproof notepads and chocolate bars. The idea being that you leave something inside the box and take a gift for yourself and leave a message about your time on Ben Nevis. A very neat time capsule sort of idea. I scribbled in the notepad the best I could with frozen hands words to these effects. Alex and James Robbie stayed on this summit for 7 nights, 2nd of August to the 9th of August 2015, to raise money for the Archie Foundation. The mountain did not defeat them. We're back at base now and the phone battery's nearly fucked, and soon, with the help of Rogan Josh, so will my ass be. Second last night tonight, 8:30 p.m. James just checked the thermometer, it's 0 degrees Celsius. Spirits are still reasonably high despite the temperatures. Night night. Saturday the 8th of August 2015. The above date officially declared by me and James as National Get Us the Fuck Home Day. Strange night last night. In our sleeping bags about 2:30 this morning, James awoke me after hearing loud footsteps. I heard the same, accompanied by voices. The problem being the footsteps came from different directions from the voices. In the morning at 9 o'clock we woke, and to our astonishment, outside our shelter we found a small child's toy doll lying face down in the rocks wearing a French flag. Very strange business. The whole morning was spent in freezing temperatures chatting to tourists. This is the coldest we have ever felt. We also had to ration food supplies, so this never really helped us build up heat. Later in the afternoon, James's army pal Roy turned up. He is staying with us tonight with the intent of helping us descend with our kit in the morning. At 5 o'clock approximately, a most welcome surprise visit from Fiona McWilliam and Ben Ray, each of them bringing us extra food supplies, proof that people really care. In absolutely abysmal weather, me, James and Roy made a final tour of the summit, and James and I were photographed drinking champagne at the trig point by way of a celebration of our achievement. Stuff's all packed, beer being consumed, only a few hours to go. You and Norrie arriving at 6 o'clock in the morning to provide extra assistance. They said it couldn't be done and would never be done. Looks like we've fucking done it. More to follow tomorrow and Sunday. Excuse the handwriting. Sunday the 9th of August 2015. Handwriting improved slightly due to this being written in Kerrymuir rather than a cloud. Conditions were a little cramped last night due to us having an extra guest, although we managed to get adequate sleep. Roy slept as good as one can in unusual and novel surroundings. At 4:50 a.m, an hour earlier than anticipated, you and Norrie arrived at the door of our shelter, having just scaled the UK's highest mountain in the dark, rain and alone, with only a small hand torch for visual assistance. He cheerfully blasted the torch across our sleeping faces, awakening us one by one. It was time to go home. After packing our stuff and dismantling the banner, we started to descend at 5:40 in the morning. I don't know why, but I genuinely felt nothing but the emotion of sadness when I cast one final glance over my shoulder at our 20-foot high shelter, and it finally, slowly but surely disappeared out of sight and into the cloud that conceals it for over 90% of the year. The walk down was truly miserable, wet, sweaty and sore on the legs. I won't go to any further effort to describe it. At the Ben Nevis Inn Bridge and Style, we met by Carrie and Alan, who photographed us at our emotionally and physically lowest point. Dave and Rachel had also made the trip from Kerrymuir to Fort William to greet us, a wonderful surprise. Back at the Range Rover, I peeled off my soaking wet clothes while Alan made bacon and black pudding rolls on a stove, and Carrie thrust a can of cold Tennent's into each of myself and James's hand. A very nice way to be welcomed down the mountain. They took us to the previous week's hotel to collect my belongings and we began the drive home, a journey that Alan managed to extend by 46 miles after a missed turn off at Speenbridge. Home for a 90-minute shower and now my way to the pub to get gassed. It's here we'll conclude the note taking in this little waterproof pad that I got as part of a buy one get one free deal in Fort William Saturday past. But I won't conclude until I've said a few important thank yous. And remember, these are only thank yous from our week on the mountain itself. Anyone that feels they've been missed out, I apologise.
Put your hand inside the table, slam your fingers in the door, fuck the kitchen knives and skewers. Dress me up in women's clothes, messed around with gender roles, lie my eyes and call me pretty.
This may not have been the greatest charity event ever, but it was fucking good. These rough notes only form an outline of the tale. The photographs and story will fill in the centre. Thanks once again, Alex Robbie, August 2015.